Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Sure.
let's do it.
We just have two proposed language changes.
Okay.
The first one is establish a work calendar. So we were, Brian provided this to us at one of the admin meetings. Which this looks a little different maybe than what we've traditionally done. And we would like the flexibility to be able to change our work calendar because as you guys know, our days look different. You know what I mean? Even from the elementary to the secondary level. Not to say that we're not going to work our 211 or our 220 days, but just to have some flexibility. You know, like I look at August 1st. And if we could have flexibility where me as an elementary principal, I could work, you know, September 12th in exchange for that, which we kind of already do already sometimes, right? There's a ball game at the high school. There's high school administrators there, right? On the 12th. And especially during that time, you know, when we don't have kids in the building and there's not additional staff. Currently right now, we utilize trade time, which we keep track of hourly, which as you can imagine, at some point it's a lot. So just to kind of be able to have those conversations with our supervisor, hey, what are the 211 contractual hours I'm gonna work, and then if that changes, just to communicate with him, so that we're still working our contractual hours. Make sure that our duties are completed satisfactorily, but then just kind of give some flexibility, especially in that early time in that July period when we don't have staff in the building, we don't have kids. I think that pretty much covers that. There is flex language on page 4 of the building administrators agreements. That's something that if we can go with this work calendar establishment, we feel like we can just eliminate. Flex days have become kind of gray with all the calendar changes that have been made. And so I don't know that anybody's really used them a whole lot.
So maybe and Haley, like, are you kind of thinking versus flex days like admin calendar or something?
Yeah. Establish a work calendar.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Then that other piece there is, you know, change the trade day language. Trade day time is defined as a day worked outside an administrator's traditional work calendar. But if we have that flexibility, you know, to communicate with Brian and say, hey, I'm going to work September 12th, but I'm not going to work August 1st. I think that the trade days they would drop drastically for the trade time, just because we would cover that in the calendar. Not to say that we want to keep that in there, but just to kind of clean that up a little bit.
Okay.
Then that second piece there is that summer education leave. Just as we were kind of looking through this as a group, we kind of got to that section and all of the newer administrators were like, what is this? And all of the guys who have been here for a while were like, I don't really know. Nobody's really used it. So we just feel like that's something that we can just eliminate. That section. Then the last part there, that insurance and benefits, that was kind of what we talked about previously. And
since it's just you, Haley, would you like to?
You want me to leave the room?
Yeah. You can go hang out in like Beth's offices, that area open behind your office.
Hey, do you have some data? You have some paperwork that you can maybe that work done?
You know, we're talking about this for a few minutes.
There's a book. Oh.
Some data housekeeping.
There's a book. I actually might have a copy of the book upstairs. Well, you can go hang out in my office on the couch.
Hey, don't tell me what it's done. All right, I'll just be out here.
Okay, I'll come get you.
I do.
Yeah.
What is your thought on this
calendar, so,
Yeah.
yeah, so we went with that this year, and then what we found in that, was that we just kind of would prefer to maybe have a little more flexibility, have it a little more fluid, so if you wanted to do a little more time, maybe at the end of your contract, and then not as much going into it, or kind of vice versa, maybe you'd rather let some time and get that a little bit earlier. We just have a little more flexibility within that to do that, you know, in terms of time. And honestly, all of our principals do such a good job, and they're always working, they're always doing what they need to do, so I don't see any issue with it. Really, I think the admin calendar would be a fine way to go.
And I think with the way the calendar switched, it just keeps getting earlier and earlier and earlier, like you're back in July. So it's hard to sometimes
Yeah, so it just kind of. gives
commit
that
others,
more time
especially. if
To
you're
just
going
call, say, hey, Brian, we talked about this, I'd like to maybe do these 2 days here, and I'll pick up an extra one over the break, so I can come back on this, maybe we have a family vacation. So we can just kind of navigate with them.
So when they say establish work calendar, then it sounds like they would each individually like their own work calendar that they establish with you.
Yeah,
right?
which we had kind of done,
Okay.
and then we could, you know, just kind of take the time to pick through it each year and say, hey, you have some stuff coming up, you want to switch these days around, whatever. It's just totally fine. But as long as they're meeting the days, and like she said, the contract time threshold.
And they said when there's not kids.
So we would still have, you would have like an essentially a basic calendar.
Mhm.
And then they would work from there to change something that they.
Yep, kind of adjust it based on that, so then it's all factored in on like the number of days they're working, like, as you know, like in that responsibility matrix too. I mean, it cascades up from what Haley's at through Dustin. Dustin then works the most time out of our building principal, right? And his responsibility level for the principals is the highest too. When it comes to just anything about, right, the magnitude of events that happen. A school versus the other schools.
So do you have anywhere that says that it's mandatory to be in the school when students are in attendance? And then the days when they're not are days that are available to be flexed, basically, for lack of a better word, on the work calendar?
Yeah, that's how it's been, duties as assigned with it, and unwritten rule. Because if you said hours, then if you were sick or something.
Right.
We always have.
Yeah, because obviously you have a right to, you have sick days built into your,
Mhm.
but I'm just talking in terms of a calendar.
Sure.
Historically, it's been like elementary, that 0.25 is for, contract like things. It would be the 3 weeks before school starts and the 2 weeks after school is out. And how that's been.
The only reason I'm asking is because you have people who are working really well within this framework, it sounds like. But prior to them, there was an individual that when he went to leave, we got these enraged emails saying you're in violation of your contract. Like, I tracked them these this way. The district didn't track them this way, like, threatening a lot of things. And so I'm just curious, like, if
We could put something though, kind of like you're saying, on the lines of this, Krista, where it has maybe within the calendar, maybe we could just say, something, or we're on this line here, maybe we could switch out flex days and put calendar. We could also put days flexible based on school times or instructional times or
even,
something where that there's more flexibility.
yeah,
Students are in session.
even say, like, if we're eliminating flex days, I think you need something in there that says these are at the discretion of the superintendent, and then you can say, well, there's school that day, that's not gonna work, or something like that. That gives you more flexibility, but if you eliminate that entirely, you're eliminating that, they must be approved in writing in advance by the superintendent.
And that language is somewhat in the proposal. This calendar will be developed with and monitored by the administrator super. Any variations to the established calendar must be communicated and approved by the administrator supervisor using trade time. Trade time is defined as the,
Okay.
And trade days do not carry over from year to year.
Okay, so this, okay, I didn't.
They
I
kind of
didn't realize
took
that
what
was
was
what
here
they're
and combined it
proposed.
with
Gotcha.
the calendar and all together.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't see anything wrong with it. Really, they're in the building a lot longer than, without students. There's a lot more things that they have to get done, don't get me wrong. And they probably put in, instead of 211, they probably actually put in more like 260 days anyways. But, if there's some flexibility in there and there's a reason behind it, they communicate with you. That would be what, as their supervisor, that's what would be falling under your discretion there to say, well, that's probably not. I understand where you're going, but it's not a good idea. We need to use whatever, but, I think that there's the best. Them work with you. I would say that it needs to be, I would think the best way to do it would be a written request and a written response. It can be email or whatever, something that can be tracked, and they can bring it to you and you guys can talk about, obviously, and have a documented track when there, whether it's approved or not, and when change. Just because then it does provide the district with a little
Which
bit.
is what we do kind of, like, when that's done, that we do it all through email. To fit everything on.
Okay, yeah, and no, that would be the only thing that I would think, is just that it needs to be documented. When it's either approved.
Maybe like when you say any variations must be communicated and approved using trade time, and then you maybe add in writing to that sentence.
Yeah, I just, because then like it helps us if there is some big discrepancy.
Yeah, that
I
was.
don't think
part
there's
of
gonna
my
be one
issue.
with discrepancy. You never know. There could be something come up
We'll
with.
trade that, and then after.
So write about approved,
You're kind of saying,
communicated and approved in writing by
Yeah.
the administrative supervisor.
yeah, right, that's what, yeah.
That just provides, there's a little bit of. It is or it's not, but obviously they're gonna have a conversation anyways, but then they're just not documentation.
Yeah.
That's what we were missing in the example, like this.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, and it's true, Kristen. I mean, right now we're lucky because we've got some really great people up there, but that doesn't mean the divisions don't come.
Well, they are glad to be two out there.
Yeah, that's true.
You never know.
Still a position.
You do.
So we gotta,
Yeah, okay, so in writing, yep. Okay, what's your thoughts on the eliminate summer education? He would kind of shared with me kind of the background of that, I don't see any reason. Not something we do.
what is the,
I know when I took classes, I just took them off. Like I have ready for vacation for it. Yeah.
if they're okay getting it taken out,
They can bark it.
Yeah.
let's do that.
I don't see a reason, but
I mean, it doesn't really do, it's not really a. Not benefit us.
no, it's not.
So if they're okay getting rid of that thing. do that.
Right. And then salary and insurance.
They just wanna, did they just say, we'll just take the teacher's got?
Yeah. And then, of course, their insurances would stay the same, which is.
Yeah.
Which is different, but their salary is exactly what the teachers. Yeah. So.
Which, I mean, is what we did with the teachers, really, because they're insurance.
Right.
So really, that's not much.
Yeah, so it's really, that's my thing, so. I think those are pretty easy. I like the adjustment of the in writing to the top language. But I think the other stuff makes sense. Moses, what do you think?
Financially, we're good.
Okay.
Not a big ask or anything.
Perfect. Holly?
Very good. Great.
Yeah.
I'll go good.
I have an archery.
I set up the case of jazz till 10:30 p.m.
What?
That's tonight.
Haley, thank you.
Yeah,
So on proposal, number one,
Okay.
on the language change, the only thing we were gonna add into this was on your sentence where it says, any variations to the established calendar must be communicated and approved. We're just gonna add in language that says in writing by the administrator or supervisor.
Okay.
Using trade time. Does that sound good?
Yep.
So we'll add that language in.
so just the in writing part.
Yep.
Okay,
That way we just have a way to track it.
yep,
And then number two, we were good with eliminating the summer education leave, so no issues there.
okay,
And then on number three, we approved the salary increases for 25-26 and 26-27, and then no changes to the insurance package.
just so I can clarify too, like with that established work calendar, that would be any Friday and Saturdays that are non-contract. Are we all on the same page there?
When you say that again,
So the flexibility then is in like a non-contracted Friday or Saturday, right? So like we have a no,
yep. So you're saying like if you trade that out, you could work a non.
right? So it's tough being an elementary person, but I'm gonna put myself in the middle school position.
Mhm.
I have a track meet that I'm gonna work all day on a Saturday. That's that flexibility piece, where that's one of my contracted days, because I'm working at the track meet all day. That,
And are you saying you're coming from a middle school administrator standpoint?
right, so I'm trying to put myself in my colleague's shoes, yeah. You know what I mean? It's different in elementary because I don't have track meets to go to, you know what I mean, right?
Right.
So I'm trying to are we all on the same page with that?
That could be one to, because if we're not trading out contracted days, that could be, an event could be a little different, just because basically there's also the purview of like, that's kind of part of the job. So that one would be, we probably need to have a different discussion on, just based on those requirements of those all kind of fall in line with part of the situation.
How would we differentiate those then?
I think days that are, like, you could use a non, if you wanted to trade out, let's say, a Friday that's contracted time to one where we don't have like a non-school day on a Friday.
Right.
Trading days across, because you're gonna say, hey, I've got, this Friday, I've got my building covered, I wanna go down and watch my nephew compete at a track meet in Malta or whatever. So I'm gonna come in and catch like the next one. That's different than just trading out, because you're trading out a work day for like an event. I would see that could get sticky.
So what about like, somebody working the state basketball tournaments? And they're there Friday, Saturday. Is that in the same?
Do we have any administrators that are working? Or do you mean like
I'm
they're
thinking
just,
like state basketball.
Or are you saying to go?
You go to state basketball to be the administrator at the
Sure.
events.
that
You're there on a
is,
Saturday.
yeah, that one, like, because then you're helping chaperone an event. That one's a little different. Kind of purview of like a state one.
So then what about like, I have a basketball game, we got a double header on a Saturday. And I have to, I don't know, I'm there.
If you're a high
If
school administrator and there's an event on a Saturday, that's just part of the expectation.
So we probably need to go back and change this language then to tighten that up.
Yeah, exactly,
It's
yeah.
kind of said that, when originally you had said when there aren't kids in the buildings.
Right.
Right,
So it's thinking more along the lines of.
Summer. Maybe Christmas break, hey, Brian, like I would like to, maybe I'm gonna put in a couple days over Christmas break or whatever, and so I'm gonna start 2 days later at the beginning of my contract or whatever. Like that totally makes sense, easy to do, easy navigation, but if we're gonna talk like events, then that probably would be a different, for sure, a different discussion.
Because if we're gonna count events, our high school and middle school administrators, I mean. That's
A lot.
that's one or two a weekend. So if you look at the course of the year,
That'd be a lot.
really, they would, when the teachers are done, hey, I'm done, because I worked all the week. But it's like our teachers that have to come in for an IEP meeting. Outside of their contract hours, we don't then get to them.
Doesn't that 60?
It falls in that outside of work. Time deal,
Part of your duties.
So we probably need to add something, and I think I'd be more comfortable talking with my group before we add or change that part, because I
Sure.
think we have to,
Sure.
we're gonna have to shore that part up, right?
Yeah, yep, which is totally fine. Like, we can set another, we can just agree to set another meeting time, Haley,
Okay,
just to kind of maybe shore up some of that language so that we're all on the same page with that. And like I said, you know, the in writing time, like, we're on the same page with you. We think
Yeah.
that makes sense, like, and we are all able to communicate really easily, you know, you shoot me an email or text, hey, yep, no worries, we can handle that, yep, take it on. All that piece is great, but we just, in terms of, I think, job expectations with that job,
Mhm.
that part probably needs to just be delineated out a little bit more on what makes sense on a trade day or a trade, you know what I mean? If we're gonna
Yeah.
talk like if you're a middle school administrator and you've got middle school track on a Saturday,
that's part of,
that's just part of
you're
the
saying
gig.
that's part
That's
of.
part of the gig. Yeah,
So then an exception would be like, I'm gonna come in and work on the 30th of December.
100%. Yep. Or if, you know, you want to trade out like a work day for, hey, I'm gonna come in on a Saturday, obviously, you know, I don't work on Saturday, but I'm gonna trade out this time for a work day because my kid has this special appointment I gotta drive to Missoula for. You care if I come in, something like that, but just the events that are associated with that, I don't think would be a good one to go down, just because there's a lot.
Yeah,
And I think too, for me, like the events and the expectation that they're present during the events is actually written into their job description, right? And that was disclosed to them like during the interview process, and that was made very clear it was an expectation. So to me, that isn't a calendar issue necessarily, that's just part of their duties, I guess.
okay.
Right.
All right, so I'll go back to my group and we'll,
So we're good then on 2 and 3, and
Yep.
then maybe just some tweaking on 1,
okay,
and then we'll just reconvene.
okay,
And finish it up.
sounds good.
Okay.
Right.
Awesome. Thanks, Haley.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate it. And then just let me know when you have that, and we'll book it.
Okay,
Okay.
sounds good. I'll try to get it done quickly.
Yep, that sounds great.
Thank you.